All right. They're really big on this. If you've got like Docker kind of pants that have pockets over pockets, and somebody sees it, like if Mr. Corrigan sees it or Ms. Bruggeman sees it, they will they will find you in the hallway and they will tell you you can't wear that anymore. All right, and they will tell you nicely the first time. Believe it or not, they won't be that nice the second time. It's like I told you, type of an idea. All right, so they've got some stuff in here, what you can and what you can't. If you're in doubt, don't wear it. That's all I can tell you. The facial hair, I don't want to go through this because we already just did. With IT, there are no things, so I mean, you can wear any color pants supposedly you want. One thing they'll hit you on, I'm not looking, but they don't want you to wear tennis shoes. All right, and they say that they've got their own reasons, but a lot it all boils down to again the idea of work ethic. Now, I was a programmer for 3.5 years before I got into education. I'm not really exaggerating. They almost didn't care if you came in naked. All right. And I mean, there were guys there that holes in their shirts, shoes without laces, and no one cared if you got your job done. But that's not how they are here. So, you're asked that you respect that, I guess. A couple more things. I know one of them, let's see, where was that? No, not there. They actually gave us this thing. This doesn't matter to you, but it does more to us. But just so you know, we've got a new form for attendance, and like it says on there, and I told you a little bit earlier today, that all literally goes into your work ethic grade. So try not to miss if you can help it. That said, again, you go home and you start feeling my throat's really killing me, don't come in. They don't want to take chances. We had one person in this class, in this classroom last semester who did test positive. And he was gone no, two of them did. In fact, one of them did. The other one had a parent that did. They never did. But because of protocol, they had to be out for 2 weeks. That's just how it works. All right. If something does happen with this, this appeals form that they talk about in here, talk to me. If I have to, I'll work with you on it. All right. It's no big thing. All right. This is the policy. The bottom line is this. Let's just assume for a second that Michael has, just missed for a whole bunch of days and now he's exceeded. I'm not saying you're going to do that, but let's just assume that happened. What happens then is if you reach 7 absences, actually, you guys may know this already. I don't remember from last semester. When you reach 4, I've got a form that I have you fill out and sign, and it just says, "Hey, I told you you missed 4 times, but you give me that form back. If you miss a 5th time, you've got to go next door to Mr. Corrigan. He's got to sign it, and he'll say, now, Donald, you missed 5. You've only got really 1 more you can miss. You miss again, you got to go over to the other building and have either Patrick or Brandon sign it. You miss again, I'm required. It kicks in their software to fill out one of these forms, these course dismissal forms. All right? And if you want to fight that, you can. But if you come into class, I'm supposed to say you can't be here. You go, well, I'm going to fight it. Then I've got to print out the form for you. You've got to fill it out and give it to me. Then you can stay in class. That's just their protocol here. All right? And if you do that and you send it in, it goes to Miss Heron, that you one of the people you heard reading stuff before. If she says no, then it goes to what's called the ADRB, which is the Academic Disciplinary Review Board. And it's more than what they said, because to my knowledge, there are students on that too. But I think they're all from St. Louis because they always meet in St. Louis. But if you were kicked out of a class and you go to fight it, they do let you fight it from here. You have to phone in or Zoom in or whatever. I'm not sure exactly how they do it. All right? All right. Yeah, whatever. And one thing they just keep pushing on us to push on you is the fact that, and if there's anything wrong, if something happens, I mean, certain things you cannot fix. All right. I was last Thursday when we had our in-service day, I was one of the speakers, and I was talking to the people there, and we were talking about when we have our course evaluations. And when I was at a school in Wisconsin, I got a course evaluation once where the person said, "I just can't stand his voice." You know, there's not much I can do about that. I could probably try to talk higher or lower, but that's, it is what it is type of an idea. But if there's something wrong, you're supposed to try to let us know as soon as you possibly can. Now, if you look on here, because this is new this semester, we've got Michelle Riley, and I don't think I met Michelle. I might be wrong, but I don't think I have. In the past, what we've had, and you guys probably saw this last semester, we had a counselor, David Markowitz, who would go to all three campuses. So if you had a problem, he would come in here and talk with you, or if you had missed a lot, I might have actually sent him an email and said, "Hey, can you come in and talk to so-and-so," etc. Now they've got people who are supposed to be, I believe, that Michelle Riley is here and in Perryville, so she'll probably be here. David Markowitz came here an average of once every 2 or 3 weeks. Now, he'd come if I'd ask him to, but other than that, he did not make special trips out here. All right? So I don't know Michelle Riley. My guess is that she will be coming in here either today or maybe sometime this week or early next week to introduce herself, talk about what she does, etc. All right? Just so you know that. All right. It's kind of neat if you haven't seen it already that if you go out to Inside Rankin now, they do have that little button in there, and there's supposed to be somebody who will answer your questions almost immediately. Now, I don't know if they literally feel that 24/7. They probably don't, but you get the idea that if you've got a question or a problem, they should work with you on it. All right. Now, I'm going to show you this, and if you want to laugh and say, "Oh my God," fine. I have no problem with it. But that said, what they want to have us start encouraging all of you to do is to create study groups. Now, with a small group in here, it'd be a group of 5. Let's say that we create one, and Nicholas says, "I have no need for this." Then he doesn't have to join. You don't get any points for joining. You don't get anything taken away from you for not joining. But what they have found in the past is that people that join these things are willing to ask questions that they feel, "I can't ask this in class because I'm going to look stupid," type of an idea. So the idea is, if you are interested in doing that, just send me an email. All right. If you're interested in doing that and you want to say, "Well, I'll do it, I'll be in charge," that's fine. I'm supposed to get you going if you want to make a study group, but I'm not part of it. Now, that said, if you say, "No, we really want you to be part of this meeting," I can come into it. It doesn't have to be during class hours, but you're supposed to find a time when you can all meet. All right. Now, I would have no problem if we're having a test tomorrow. We're not. But if we were having a test tomorrow and you all wanted to go into that corner and meet, then go do that. It's not a problem. All right. But what I will do, I'm having problems with the printer this morning, is I'm going to print this out. It's just 2 pages, 3 pages, unfortunately. But I'm going to give everybody a copy tomorrow. And if you're interested, talk about it. If you're not interested, or if somebody asks you and you're not, just tell me you're not interested. All right. I'm not trying to push anything onto anybody. But like I said, they were really talking about this the other day, and they said that they have done studies, and by and large, what happens is when people get involved in these kinds of things, they're likely to do better. All right. Okay. Now, how many of you do not have the books yet? Okay, just you. So the rest.
I mean, I have my HTML and Java stuff. I'm having trouble accessing my Cengage, or at least the other books for it.
Yeah. Did you guys hear? Tomorrow in the other building from 7 to 8, Patrick's going to be down there and Brandon, and they'll help anybody set those things up that need to have them set up.
Okay.
All right. And the only reason I'm not trying to push you off, I don't know how to do it. Because I don't use any Cengage. I've used Cengage books in the past, not on this campus. All right. So I don't know, like I said, I don't know what their setup is. But even with that,
you think you could do that after?
if you want, you could, when you leave today, you could go over there and talk to them and ask if you could come up with a time. If 7 to 8 is not convenient for you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I know they'll work with you on that. In the past, what's happened too, and that may happen this semester, they have had somebody from Cengage come to the campuses one time. You know what I mean? And that day, she or he would be available to help you. That's all I can tell you because that's all I know about it. All right. All right. What I have asked, and I will show you this. Let's see. I sent this out yesterday. They're actually really good about getting back to you and doing things. It's funny. I use a product that's called Vital Source, and I get the equivalent of PDFs for all my books. That makes sense? I'm not allowed to give that to you. If I was, I'd give it to you. But I can get myself into a boatload of trouble if I do that, so I'm not going to do that. All right. But yesterday, I went and checked, and my Vital Source link didn't work for the first book. It did for the second book. Usually they give you a year, and then it goes out of, basically you got to renew it. All right. And I thought that mine was longer, but evidently. So I got a hold of them, and this morning they sent me a new link so I can get back to the book. All right. And the woman that I talked to there, Judy Taylor, Judy's really, really nice. I said, is it possible to get PDFs for the first few chapters of the book? They have not gotten back to me yet on that request. All right. They did that last semester, but it was for the C# book, so that's not going to help any of you. All right. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through Chapter 1. We're not going to have any tests on Chapter 1. Whether we should or not, I'll leave that for another time, but we're going to walk through it nice and slow. You can, for lack of better words, you can sort of see my style for the way that I will do lectures, etc. And we'll talk about it because it's a lot of general type of things. All right. I have no idea how long that will take. Then I think what we'll do is with whatever time is left, all right, with whatever time is left, we'll actually just get onto the system and play around a little bit so I can show you a couple things. Now, even if you didn't get a chance to totally set up your GitHub, it's totally fine. We're not going to save this anyway. And Mason, what you may want to do at that time is you may want to come over here and sit a couple away from Michael here, or a couple away from Donald. If you want to see what's going on, you can watch on my machine also, whatever's the easiest for you. But please, and it's fine that you didn't bring anything today, but please, every day we're going to be using the computers in here. All right? And good, bad, or indifferent, the other machines, they're for the hardware program. All right? And it's literally what happens is one time a year, typically pre-COVID, I have students come in here from like Lewis and Clark Academy. They've come in here, and then they set the machines up, and the students can use those for the day. Other than that, I can't use those either. All right? So, all right. So like I said, what I'll do is I'm just going to get on here to Vital Source. Let's see, bookshelf. And I will tell you too, there's a pretty good chance there's at least something I forgot to tell you today that I meant to tell you. It's just going to happen. I don't want to have this where tomorrow or wherever we have to go back and repeat a lot of this stuff. All right? Am I right in assuming that in that hour and 15 minutes you heard enough? Yeah, okay. All right, I never had anybody in the past who said, no, I want more. Okay, so this is our book, and I really quickly want to let you know how I plan on attacking this book. Okay, does that make sense? All right. Believe it or not, tomorrow we're going to do chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, you might look at that and go, geez, look at all those pages. Well, start looking at it. If you don't have the book, if I get the PDFs for chapters 1 and 2, I will send them to you. I have tried asking them in the past, and I've said, hey, can I get the PDFs for the first 3 or 4 or 5 chapters? They're like, no. Our policy is we give them out for the first 2. Now, that said, if you go out to their website, which is murach.com, MURACH.com, you can download a PDF of Chapter 5 because they give a sample chapter. And and like I said, that's the one I hope to be able to actually go over tomorrow. So you'll be able to look at that. All right. If they give me the stuff, I'll give it to you. If they don't, there's not real much I can do about it. Now, if you do have the money and you go out to murach.com or wherever, then you can get the ebook. The ebook is I think it's about $5 cheaper than the actual hardcover book. All right. So, but in an ideal world, at least, we'll go through these 5 this week. Next week, I don't know if we can go through all 5 of these, the next 5 or not. I don't know. Let's assume we can. That's fine. Then we'll slow it down a little bit because 2 weeks from today, we're off. If you don't know that already, it's Labor Day. All right? School is closed for Labor Day. All right? Then when you come back, we will go over 11 through 16. Now, I'm going to spend probably one class period doing 17, 18, 19, and 20. There won't be any tests. There won't be any homework on those. But especially with 19 and 20, that's an introduction into the other book. All right? So we'll do that. All right? But, so what I'm saying is, if tomorrow we go through 2, 3, 4, and 5, then tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the written tests. And when I give you the written tests, we will go over them a week after they're handed out. Now, what I've done in the past, I got to watch myself here. All right, so that's pretty much the way that it'll be set up. Now, we slow it down a lot when we get to the other book, just so you know. All right, and if you look at that and go, you know what, this is way too much for me. Please give it a chance. That's all I can say. All right. I know that when I had a student when I was teaching in Wisconsin, it was our classes met for an hour and 50 minutes. All right. And we met twice a week. It was a totally different setup than it is here. All right. But after a class period, I went up because I got the wrong book for my next class. And one of the students was there. I said, everything okay? And she said, oh, yeah, it's fine. I just don't want to be here. She goes, I'm going to be in accounting. And that's okay. I mean, I wasn't offended or anything else, but wow, you gave it an hour and 50 minutes and now you know that it's not for you. And maybe some people are like that they can. All right. I mean, I hope I lose none of you, especially considering we have 5. Every time I lose somebody, it's 20% of the class is gone. All right. So let's go through and we'll take a look. I'll just jump in right into Chapter 1. All right, and it says here, the essential skills and concepts. Now, it's broken up into sections, so this is the first section. Now, most of the stuff in this section, literally in this section, is not stuff that you're going to be like, oh, man, that's going to really help me in this class, etc. No, it's not. All right, as it says here, this is an intro to web development. So they talk about the difference, for example, between client and server. Right? Is that important? Of course it is. This class that you're taking right now, this is a client-side class. You are doing client-side development. Not next semester, but the 3rd semester, you do a lot of this class, but on the server side. All right? So you basically end up you end up using your own machine for a while as both a client and a server. So you can actually run your stuff right on your machine. Well, that doesn't work very well because then you're the only one who can look at it. You're the only one who can use it. So we immediately show you how you can go. And I'm going to actually do that ahead of time. So I'm going to expect by tomorrow, if there's any homework, so to speak, if you get time and you want to look through chapters 2 to 5, that'd be great. But I'm assuming that by tomorrow, everybody will have Git loaded, will have GitHub loaded, and will have Visual Studio Code loaded. What we'll probably do tomorrow is we will actually go and take what we're working on and work on it with GitHub just so you're aware of how to do it. You won't have to actually push it to your own machine unless you want to your own GitHub account. but I'm going to show you how to do all that stuff tomorrow. All right. So they have changed the look and feel of this thing around. There, that's better. All right. So as it says, this is just a conceptual chapter. This is the first chapter you find in a lot of books, type of thing, where there's not a lot of meat in it. They will explain, they will show you diagrammatically how web apps work. And they will show you the difference between client side and server side. All right. As it says, there'll be an intro to HTML. HTML is an acronym, as you probably guess. Hypertext Markup Language. CSS is an acronym. Cascading Style Sheets. JavaScript is sometimes referred to as JS. All right. But more often it's just known by its regular name. Okay. They will talk a little bit about some of the different text editors and IDEs. The difference between a text editor and an IDE is a text editor is something literally like if you've ever used Notepad, all right, where you can input stuff, you can change the font size, but you can't do a whole heck of a lot, all right? And an IDE is an integrated development environment. Now, Visual Studio Code is an IDE, and it's actually a stripped down version of what we use next semester, which is Visual Studio. All right. And it'll color code stuff and do a lot of things for you. There are literally hundreds of extensions you can add to it. We're going to go through all that stuff in just a bit, or start going through it. All right. Then we will talk about how to deploy web pages. What I'd like to do, I'll have to go back and look at it because it's been a while since I've done it. You literally, after you create something and you put it out on GitHub, you can use a product that's called GitHub Pages, and you can push it out there where other people can see it. You can basically make it available on the internet. I hope that we can do that by the end of this week. All right. Then the 5 critical issues. I'm not going to read to you. All right. The key thing about this class is you'll notice with 2 of these, it starts with user. And that is the key thing when you are creating websites, is the user has always got to be first and foremost in your mind. All right. Now, when I taught this class last semester, and I want to show you this. Let's see, this will take a second. This is what we did as a class. We did it last semester. I wasn't having students basically go, hopefully this is going to work. Okay. Having students go and build their own website. We did one as a class. All right. One of the other instructors here, the guy who's in here in the afternoon after me, Mr. Growherring, he was out with his wife one night, and somehow they started talking to the woman at the table next to them. And he mentioned how he worked in computers, etc. She's like, "Oh, I run this animal sanctuary, and I really wish I had somebody to create a website for me." So he told me, all right, and basically I had the students do it, and she went through it. She loved them. She said, "This is great what these people have done." Then I showed her what she'd have to do to update it, using HTML, CSS, and she's like, "I don't know how to do any of that stuff." So this summer, I went and redid this in another package that we don't teach here, but that's very drag and drop friendly. All right, it's called WordPress, and I've set the site up for her on there. All right, but I'm just showing you. I mean, this is Aaron's. He had no more experience than anybody else coming in. You can see this. These are some of her adoptees. As you work your way through here, etc. And the stories, etc. And when I did this, I gave people all of this information, but I didn't tell them how to do it. That's what we worked on as a class. But the idea was I didn't tell them how to do it. That's Caitlin. Well, you saw her for a second there. She's the one she's the owner. All right. And the idea was you do it the way you want to do it. All right. I mean, and sometimes what happens is when you start working on a website for someone and you say, "What do you want?" They don't know. They literally don't know. But after you give them a first pass, they know what they don't want. All right. Years ago, when I was teaching in Wisconsin, I had a student who agreed to do a website for a senior citizen center. I don't think I would ever agree to do one for a senior citizen center again. They were terrific people. They were really nice. But every week, oh, can you do that? Can you change this? Can you change this? And finally we said, okay, you know what? What colors do you want? What fonts do you want? What this? And we want to agree on it. We're not going to change it anymore. And they agreed on all that. We even signed it. Then the next week, could you just change the color on this and on this? Finally, the guy working on it told me, he was in a meeting with me, and he said, you can tell them that I'm not, they can have one more thing that changes, whatever they want, but no more. He said, I'm spending more time on this and not getting paid for it than I am on my schoolwork. All right, so that's what I'm getting to is a lot of times people don't know what they want until you show them what they don't want. All right, but these are the kind of things you'll learn how to add images. You'll learn how to bring in stuff like this, how to create forms. And I guess he didn't have a form in here, but you'll learn how to do that stuff. And is it all easy? Some of it, of course, as you'd guess, is easier than other things. But I don't think there's anything that's in this class that is unbelievably difficult. That said, I'm sure you'll find some of the stuff in here will be much more difficult than other things. All right, that just makes sense. Now, if you don't have your book yet or you really haven't looked through it, the thing about Muroc books is typically what they do is usually on the left-hand side, it's all text, and on the right-hand side, it's either code or it's some kind of an explanation of the text that was on the left-hand side. That's usually how they do things on most pages. All right? And that's how they are. So they talk about the World Wide Web in here, and they talk about the internet in here. You can go out, you can find pictures of the internet. I think personally those pictures are funny because, it's like, it's not really a drawing that you can make. Draw the internet. Yeah, right. Okay, I don't know how to do that. But you can go out and find things where people try to show them what you would think it would look like. But on here, what they have, this has changed over the years, the components of a web app. Back in the past, not real long ago, all right, not real long ago, we're talking about the last version of this book. They did not show a tablet, they did not show a smartphone. In other words, they show a desktop, and there might have been a laptop and a desktop, etc. If you haven't heard this, and it's the truth, I think it was in the middle of 2017, more people now access the internet through tablets and through their phones than do through laptops and desktops. All right? So one of the things that we will talk about in here is a concept that's called RWD, or responsive web design. You want this to look nice, whether or not it's being looked at on a phone or a tablet or a laptop or a desktop, or even somebody, one of my former students, he was what do they call it? He wasn't blind, but he was legally blind. And at his house, he literally had like a projector type of unit set up that was humongous because it made it easier for him to read. Well, you want to make sure the site even looks nice on something like that. All right. Now they talk in here about LANs. You can see this. Guess what? We've got a LAN in here. A LAN is a local area network where the computers can be physically connected to one another. It would be totally possible not just to connect these, but to connect these to the ones across the way here or even downstairs. Also, a local area network implies locality, where you also see in here a WAN, which is a wide area network. There is a wide area network between here and St. Louis, in the St. Louis campus. In fact, the St. Louis campus controls a lot of what goes on at this campus. The hardware guys that we have here do not like that. All right? Because when they have problems there, we usually get them here. And we've asked for years, but the problem is if there's a problem there, then they know they have to drive 40 miles to get over here, and they don't want to do that. I guess that's the situation. But a wide area network, there's not a physical connection. I mean, we're not going to run wires for 40 miles between here and St. Louis. It just ain't going to happen. All right? So it says there that it consists of clients. That's your machine. Whether it's a phone, whether it's, a tablet, whether it's this machine you've got here. All right? So a web server. So if I go out and I type in rankin.edu, it goes to one of Rankin's servers. Should make sense to you. And that server might be able to directly access it, and it may not, depending on what I'm asking for. It might have to go and take my request and give it to another Rankin server. All right? And then typically you'll come back to the original server, who'll give it back to me in HTML, because that's what I can read from a website. All right? So, like I said, I don't want to sit there and you can read this if you're interested in it. We're going to start by making static pages. And static pages are pages that by default don't change. We will add JavaScript to our pages eventually, and look at it this way. All right? I look at this whole process here of kind of being like a stool with 3 legs. So one leg is the HTML, one leg is the CSS, and one leg is the JavaScript. It is possible for you to create a website, an entire completely working website that has only HTML in it. It has no CSS, it has no JavaScript. It's going to look pretty ugly, and the first one we create will look ugly until we add some CSS to it. But it'll work. You can do that. All right, you typically wouldn't want to do that. Typically, most websites have either, or have at least HTML and CSS. But if you've ever gone out to a site and you wanted to do something like at the bottom of the page, maybe you want a running clock. All right, or maybe you've seen a hit counter. You are the 534th person to visit this site. That's where JavaScript comes in, because it allows for interactivity. So HTML allows you to put content on a web page. CSS allows you to take that content and work with it aesthetically. All right? And JavaScript allows for interactivity. But if you're talking about a static website, it's one that typically has no JavaScript in it. All right? And it's basically, it's just there. So if you want to change the content of the site, you got to bring it down, make the changes, and put it back up again. Which, as you probably guessed, could be pretty poor. All right? So that's what they're showing here. Now, it may not look like it, but believe it or not, this is one of the most important slides, not only for this class, but for the class the 3rd semester. Because what you see here, right in here, is how you communicate with a web server. And you do that by making what are called hypertext transfer protocol requests. You make requests, the server comes back with a hypertext transfer protocol response. So you make a request. That might mean you click a link, you might put something in your address bar, you might click a button, but you're communicating with basically you're sending something out to a system, and the system responds back. The reason that this is static is typically it's so simple, there's only one server involved. All right, so the server can immediately answer this. All right, so as it says there, it's one that's stored on the web server and doesn't change by default. All right, now that's fine, but when you think about it, that's not typically what you want. I mean, imagine, great example here, imagine Amazon. If it wasn't interactive, why would people go out and use it? All right. So I want to make sure that when I go out here and I put something in a cart, that my cart is updated, type of thing. All right. So that, as you probably guess, involves a lot more. But notice it's still, the request is what starts it, the response is what ends it. And again, there can be umpteen servers in here. I mean, I couldn't imagine for the life of me how many servers Amazon has. Not only do they have servers, they have them probably, if you told me they have servers in every state, I'd believe you. And they have them in all sorts of countries all over the world. All right? Because Mr. Bezos has got to be able to take his rocket trips and have some way to fund them, right? All right. So as it says, a dynamic one is generated by a server-side program or script. We're not going to do anything with server-side in here this semester. Nothing. That's the 3rd semester class. That's why I leave this class and I go into the other class in the afternoon, and that's what we're going to be doing. But just so you know, they had this, the class that you're in now, they had it a year ago. All right? So guess what we're doing? This week, I'm going back and I'm talking about HTML today. Tomorrow I'm talking about CSS. And if it takes that long, we'll spend the whole first week on that. Then we're going to go into JavaScript. And we're going to start morphing because what's happening now is it used to be you could only use JavaScript on the client side just for you. But now you can use it on the server side too, which is kind of neat because you're using the same language for both the client and the server. So that's what we're going to be getting into in that class. Now they talk here, I already mentioned to you about the browsers. All right. And like I said, I'm not trying to push what I want you to use down your throats, whether it seems like it or not. I'm not. You use what you think is best for you. I'm just saying performance-wise, all right, Chrome is the best. If you don't agree with that, then use something else. That's totally fine. As far as the languages go, it's going to be interesting when you guys take C# in spring. I'm not sure if we're going to be teaching it the way you guys took it, or we're going to be totally changing the class, because no one's told me yet. I can do it either way, but in the past, we've taught it as just a regular standalone language. You know, you can make applications with it. That's what these guys did last spring. All right, but you can also use it with ASP.NET, where you can write web apps using C#. And eventually, that's what that class is going to morph into. I don't know if it'll be next semester or it'll be a year from that, from next semester. No one's told me. All right. But we do C# in here. We do Java in here in the 4th semester. So when you guys take that class in spring, you'll be learning how to create Android apps using Java. I'd like to change that because Google recommends today that rather than Java, you use Kotlin, which is kind of enhanced Java. That's not really a fair thing to say, but that's what I'm going to say anyway. But my counterpart at St. Louis does not want to use Kotlin. He has his own reasons, and since he has the ear of the people over at St. Louis more than I do, it's going to stay that way for a while. I don't have a problem with Java. I just think that if Google recommends, and it's Google Android recommends that you use Kotlin, we should use Kotlin. And if they don't agree, that's okay. That's totally fine. And it's not a real big change going from one to the other anyway. All right. I've taught PHP not here because we don't offer it here. We don't offer any of the rest of these. People have said to me in the past, I've heard this, why don't you offer Python? Anytime you go and offer a class, you've got to remove a class. And we've only got 4 to begin with. All right. So it's not like, like dropping something and adding something else is really that simple a thing to do. All right. And they show some stuff in here. Again, this is where JavaScript would come in. Things like image rollovers and image swaps. Everybody understands what those things are, right? You ever go out to a site like, I don't know, like Weight Watchers, and they might have a before and after picture of somebody. So they're a bigger person. You put your mouse on them and then they're smaller. Take the mouse off. That's the kind of thing they're talking about here. All right. So they're saying here is how does JavaScript fit into this? Again, it's the interactivity. Take a look at what they show in there. Everything that they show right there, where they say 3 of the many uses, they all involve interactivity. All right. All right. So let's look at what we're going to be doing this semester. Okay. So HTML, the hypertext markup language. All right. And again, we'll do this tomorrow. It looks like it's already after 11 o'clock. And I'm going to actually let you go a little bit early today because we didn't really have a break. The first day is always weird with all these interruptions and stuff that we have. Okay. But I just want you to know this. First of all, I have no idea why it's green, but it is. I didn't make it green. Now, what I want to show you is this. When we go through this tomorrow, we're going to do something like this. I'm just going to show you. Don't even follow along. Just watch if you would right now. So this new folder, I'll change the name and I'm going to go our first website. Again, you don't have to do this. But what I want to do is I want to open this folder up and I want to open it up in Visual Studio Code. And if you remember when you included code, when we downloaded it, I asked you to check those boxes. Well, this one, now notice if I right mouse click on it, it says open with code. So boom, this brings up Visual Studio Code, which is the editor we'll use, and now it's up in there. Does that make sense? All right, if you say you did it too fast, we'll do it tomorrow. It's no big thing. Now we're going to go and we're going to write stuff like this. So we'll come in here, and we'll say File. In fact, we won't even do that. We'll come in here and click the New File icon. All right, and then we'll do a File, Save As, and we'll call it like index.html. All right, and boom. And then we'll come in and we'll start doing stuff like this. Now look on the screen if you would, please. Notice when I come in here and I type in this, and I start typing in doc type. See that? Boom. I hit tab and it knows what I'm doing. This is what an IDE is that an editor is not. It'll provide some stuff for you. So I didn't even know if I wanted to show this to you the first day or not, but I am going to anyway. When we do this the first time, I'm going to ask that you key it in with me. All right? But that'll be the only time you'll ever do that, because there are built-in things in this IDE. So if you put in an exclamation point and you hit tab, it fills that in for you. That's a tool that's built into this editor that's called Emmet. All right? And we're going to go over what all this stuff means tomorrow. You don't have to worry about it. All right? And we'll come in here, and I just want to show you kind of a little bit of what we're going to be doing. All right? So if I come in here, and I'm going to put in what's called an H1. Whoops, not there. Sorry. There we go. I'm going to put in what's called an H1 tag. In fact, notice if I type in H1 and do that, it puts in the ending one for me. See that? I think all I have to do is type in H1 and hit tab. So there's some shortcuts built in. All right? So if I come in there and I type in, this is my first website. All right? That's it. So if I do that and I do a file and I click save, now you'll notice that if I come back here, there's my website. Now I can, blow up the size of my screen and make it a lot bigger. You get the idea. All right. So we're going to talk about tomorrow. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about all of the different tags that are in here and what they mean. That's what a lot of the first part of this book is about. All right. That's why, like when you take tests, not written tests, when you do hands-on tests, there'll never be a question in there that's true, false, or a multiple choice. None of that stuff. When you do your actual test, it's going to be build this website. That's what it's going to be. All right. So I've got that. This is my first website. Okay. So I come in here and I do that. It's like big deal. Who cares? All right. Well, what we'll end up doing after that is we're going to come in here. And there's a lot of reasons for what I'm about to tell you, but I don't want to get into wasting your time with it right now. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add what did I just add here? Well, it says I want to add a new folder. I'm going to add a new folder called CSS. And I'm going to put a file in there, and I'm going to call that file style.css. Don't worry if you don't know what this means. All right, but there's a new file. And I'm going to say, hey, every time I've got an H1 tag in here, I want the color of that H1 tag to be aqua. Make sense? That's what I'm telling. All right. Now, you'll notice that if I do a file and I do a save all and I go back into here, all right, and I look at this again, it's not aqua. And it's not aqua because I did tell my HTML file that I'm using a CSS file. Does that make sense? So, very simple thing to do, and that is, all I have to do is I have to come in here, and again, we're going to go what all this stuff means starting tomorrow. But I type in what's called a link tag. So link, hit the tab, and it says, okay, where's the file? It's in my CSS folder, and it's called style.css. So I put that in, and now when I come back here and I refresh, there it is. Now I didn't do that so you all go, ooh, this isn't the 4th of July. And I'm not giving you fireworks, but I'm just showing you a couple of simple things that we'll be working with. All right. So when we come back in here, you just saw that. Well, guess what? What if I want to go in and I want to change the background color of my entire website? You with me? So, well, I'm going to put in here body. Again, we'll get into what all this means, but I'm going to say background, and you've got your choice. I don't know why they did it like this, but you can either type in background or background hyphen color. I do both. Not to confuse people, but sometimes I just put in the color, sometimes I don't. So let's just put it in. And here we'll say, I don't know, bisque. Yeah, when I use all the time, right? So I'm going to save that. Then I'm going to come back to here, and I'm going to refresh. All right. And again, hopefully you see it didn't take much to do that. So much of the stuff that we're going to be working on as we start will be you becoming familiar with these fairly simple tags. All right. Now, what I'm going to show you right now, you might want to go here. All right. So you might want to follow along with me here. And that is, I'm going to have you go out to 2 different websites, because virtually any and every question you might have about anything in this class will be on one of these websites or the other. All right, first one, real simple, w3schools.com. That's the first one. Doesn't look like much. It's not a pretty site. That's it. And again, all you need is this to get there. By the time you finish this class, you'll know what the HTTPS is, etc. You'll know what all that stuff is. All right? But you come here, and it's got what? Learn HTML, video tutorial, HTML reference, then same stuff for CSS, then same stuff for JavaScript. And if we go down far enough, there's Bootstrap. Now, to make it even simpler, if I go back up to the top, notice tutorials. There's their tutorials. That literally will answer almost any question you have on how to do something. All right? So for instance, if I go into my Learn HTML here, there's an HTML tutorial. All right? This is new. This watch our video. They never had video tutorials before. I mean, earlier this summer when I did this, they didn't have video tutorials. But I can come through here, and this is all the stuff that's available in here. All right? What you're going to find, the reason I'm showing you this site is, let's say that I wanted to know how to set the background color for HTML or for CSS. So if I come through here and I just literally Google how to set background color in CSS, I can virtually guarantee you that one of the first ones that's going to come up is going to be W3 Schools. That's just what it is. And what they have all the time, it's like they have a try it yourself, and they want you to try it. They want you to steal their code. So if it helps you, feel free to use it. So notice if I just come in here and I change that from coral to red, and I click run, I don't have to explain anything to you. So that's one of the sites. All right. The other one, I never remember exactly what it is, so I'm going to type in here Mozilla. Oops, try it again. Mozilla Developer Network. All right. And that's it here, developer.mozilla.org. I'm going to give you this one as well. So you had the first one, and here's the second one. The only thing you need in there is this, developer.mozilla.org. All right? Okay, this gives me a chance to show you something that's very related, but a little off topic, and that is this. If you look over here, let's see. They've got a thing here that says Learn Web Development. See this? All right. Mr. Smith, who's one of my counterparts in St. Louis, I think, he hasn't told me this directly, but I think does not like these books we use. He thinks they're a little dated and we could come up with something better. But one thing about Mr. Smith is he likes the latest and greatest stuff. I give him credit for that. That's a good thing, good, especially in this field. But he wants us to start using this, Learn Web Development. And if you look at it over here, this is the whole thing. See how far down it goes? Doesn't look like that much. All right. But Jeff spent this summer creating 275 different video presentations on this series. All right. And I'm not saying it's going to answer every question you have. It made me a little more cognizant of some of the stuff I may not have been that strong in. Now, not everything that's in here. Notice it's HTML, then CSS, then JavaScript, then web forms, then accessibility. Once you get into these tools and testing, some of this stuff near the bottom, that's for the next class, the one that we teach third semester. All right. But if you go out, and again, you don't have to do this ever, much less right now. But if you go out to YouTube and you put in me, Jeff Scott, Rankin Technical College, you'll notice that when you look, there it is. I got 118 subscribers, 2,158 videos. All right. So if you just click on there, it brings you to my different playlists. So if I went to my, or all the videos, if I go to the playlist, somewhere in here is Learn Web Development. There it is. MDN, Learn Web Development, Fall 2021. And just to show you that I'm not lying.
All right. Hello once again. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin.
All right. Where is it? Somewhere in here, it'll have the, here, 275 videos. All right. Now, I supplement the stuff that's in here. In other words, I grab the stuff I think that you're going to use the most often, that's the most important to you. But for me to say, because I've had people do this in the past, you know, you did such a good job in here, Mr. Scott, I never even opened my book. Then I think I didn't do a good job. Because there's no way that you can get every bit of information in this class from just the instructor. I'm sure not that good. I don't know about Mr. G and Mr. Smith in St. Louis, but I don't think they are either. Because there's stuff in this book that you either assume someone knows or you skip over it accidentally or whatever. All right. But if you look in here, I just wanted to show you quickly. Let's see. Fall 2021 AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies. That's this class. So what's in here? Well, I went through the PowerPoints for the entire book that I get. All right? And I'm going to have to find these for you so I can give you these tomorrow. But all this stuff is in there. Like I said, I don't know about you guys. I'm sure you have your own feelings about the meeting we had a little earlier this morning. But, I didn't have any problem reading it myself. But I'm not going to do that to you. Again, you're not going to get that in here. All right. So what I'm trying to get across to you is what we're doing in this class. So jumping back to the book, which was here, you're going to learn what all this stuff means. And it's not that difficult. All right, a lot of it is just more repetition and playing with it than anything else. So you type in all this, and it gives you this. All right? And it gives you this, and there really is almost no, I think there's no there's no CSS in here. What do I mean? Well, notice that the verbiage in here, the paragraphs, they don't float off to the side of the image. Because you've got to add CSS in order to do that. You'll learn how to do that. You'll learn the old-fashioned way of doing it because it's still out there and it still works. And you'll learn the newer ways of doing it that people do it today because it's much easier to do. All right, then they talk about CSS. Now, again, I don't expect you to understand what all that stuff means, but this is the way that you write CSS. Now, to make this even a little more difficult to understand, there's 3 ways you can write CSS. Do you ever see a kid's story that looks like this? Something like that where you get a real big O. You know what I'm talking about? You can write CSS like that just applies to a letter. And that's called inline CSS. You really shouldn't do that if you can help it. But sometimes there's a real good reason for doing it. So we'll talk about inline CSS. Then we'll talk about internal CSS. You put the CSS right into your HTML file. You'll notice I didn't do that. I did external CSS where we wrote our own file and then we put a link to that file in our HTML. That's the way you should write CSS. All right. So you'll be writing stuff like this in not a very long time. So we took what was here. Oh, that was good. Try it again. We took what was here, which wasn't really formatted at all. All right, get rid of that. And we changed it to this. Now, I'm not saying, oh my gosh, it's that fantastic. But you can start seeing we floated the text around the image. We actually changed the font type. We changed the font size. And we changed the color of one of our tags. That's what you use CSS for. So it is an aesthetic type of tool. All right. I'm not a, it's funny because I almost majored in history in college, but I'm not a big guy for history in this. Let me just give it to you literally in about 1 minute. HTML's been around for about 20 years, actually closer to 30 years now. All right. And once they got to HTML4 and 4.0 in that area, people decided, you know what, this isn't any good. We want something else. We're going to get rid of it. So they tried to make a new language that's still out there called XML that was going to replace HTML. Guess what? People didn't really like it very much. So they came back and said, hey, what about HTML? Let's make it bigger and better. So that's what they did. So the newest HTML really is HTML5. They talk about 5.1, but it's version 5. That's what we're using. All right. CSS, notice the last one, it really hasn't been changed much in like the last 20 years. All right. They talk here about the World Wide Web Consortium. Would everybody agree that World Wide Web starts with three W's? Like W3 schools? That is the World Wide Web Consortium. Basically, it's the site that they run. All right. If you want some really boring reading, go out to w3.org because you can get all the technical things about everything for HTML and CSS. They're good stuff. They have great information. But I was a technical writer for a year, and it's a very dry job. All right. Tools, again, this is the one that they've always used in this book. It's called brackets. There's nothing wrong with it. It's brackets.io. If you want to take a look at it, take a look at it. You can use it for free. You can download it. I think that, almost every book that I've seen, current book, says use Visual Studio Code. And we're going to look at code in a little bit more depth and breadth of coverage because you can change anything you want. You can change the default background, make it dark as opposed to the light I have, etc. I mentioned that an IDE is kind of like an editor that's on steroids. Well, the best one we could use would be Adobe, but it isn't free. Visual Studio Code is free. All right. These are some of the ones that you can use. And virtually all of them do the same kind of thing. All right. FTP programs. What we're going to end up doing. These two guys know about it because they've done it already. All right. But we actually have a server. The name of this program used to be IWT, not AWD. It was IWT, which stood for Internet Web Technology. They changed it to AWD a while back, but they never changed the name of their server. So their server is still iwt.rankin.edu. All right. Now, over the summer, I taught for 2 weeks. I taught classes for middle school students virtually. All right. And this was one of the ones, when I got done, I created this simple website. I taught Scratch programming, and these were, I think, like 6 of my students. And these were the rest of them that were too camera shy. And this is the kind of stuff that we did. The reason I'm telling you this is I created it on my machine. Then I used a drag and drop program called FileZilla that you may have heard of. And FileZilla is what's called an FTP program, File Transfer Protocol. And by dragging it over, I just made it available on this machine. There's nothing special I had to do in order to do that. All right, so you will all get accounts. I don't want to embarrass these guys. Maybe they would care, maybe they wouldn't. But they've actually, every semester, you've got to make a portfolio, electronic portfolio. And you update it every semester. All right. In fact, I won't do it with you guys, but I'll show you. I think Aaron's is in here. Let's see. Yeah, I want to do that, but I don't want that. I think his should hopefully be under portfolio. Yeah, this is Aaron's. All right. So that is Aaron right there, the stuff he's worked on, etc. His resume is in here. Okay. And that was all ported up from, he did it on his machine. He ported it up using a file transfer protocol or FTP program. FileZilla is the best known. It's free. Eventually, I'll have all of you download it if you don't have it on already. It's not hard to use. There's other ones. The only other one I've ever used was Qt FTP. All right. I've never used FTP Voyager, and I no longer work with a Mac. All right. All right. So how to view a page? Well, we're going to go over what all this stuff means. Okay. HTTP is Hypertext Transfer Protocol. More and more today, you're seeing HTTPS instead of HTTP because it's a secure protocol. This is the domain name. All right. And a lot of times, that's all there'll be. There won't be a path afterwards or a file name. All right. So it says if you omit the protocol, it assumes HTTP or HTTPS. That's why you can usually put it, omit it, and it'll still work. Now, if you're using FTP, you can't omit it. All right. If I want to view the source code for the page, well, this thing I just showed you that I was making here, kind of garbagey little thing right there. Okay. And then I went and ran it for you, and you saw it wasn't really very, very good, but it looked like, where was it? Well, wherever the heck I had it. I'll just bring it up again. If I right mouse click on this and choose View Page Source, there's my code. Now, does that matter? Well, as I've had people raise their hand and get all excited and say, you know what? I went out to CNN.com, I right mouse clicked, and I chose View Page Source, and I saw all the code that made up their web page. And that's what it is. Now, most of that, of course, you cannot change. But guess what? Yes, you can. But you can change your own copy of it, and we'll talk about how to do that. All right? And not very long from now. All right. I'm going to just buzz through the rest of this. These are these critical issues, users and usability. Again, what do users want when they use a website? They want it to be easy. More than that, they want it to be intuitive. They expect that if you've got something in here that says it's got something on it, that if I click here, that I'm going to go to jewelry because it says jewelry right there. You might say, well, duh. Yeah, you'd be amazed. All right. Cross-browser compatibility. I want it to look the same regardless of whether I'm looking at it on a phone or a tablet, whether I'm using Internet Explorer or Edge or Firefox. There's usually going to be a little bit, there might be some differences, but they should be very minute. You shouldn't be able to really tell a difference. Again, why use this? Notice a perfect score is 555. Well, look at the one that's up there. And then look what's putting up the rear. All right? So cross-browser compatibility means you want it to look the same, if at all possible, on every machine. Accessibility, as time goes on, this is more and more important. I'm not trying to be funny, mean, or anything, but you know what? If I'm selling a service or a product, I don't personally care if you're blind, deaf, etc., or not. As long as you got money and are willing to pay me for it, that's totally fine. So I want to make sure that the product that I'm creating for you is as easy for you to use as possible. That makes sense? That's what accessibility is all about. And I will tell you, regardless of what you read, no site is 100% accessible and has everything it should have in it. Okay? Search engine optimization, you might have heard of this already, SEO. If I come in here, I've used this example before, and I put in sporting goods. Notice what comes near the top, or at least seems to, is Dick's. So if I made Jeff's Sporting Goods, I would want to make sure that I use search engine optimization so I got on this front page. All right? Responsive design I've already mentioned to you. So notice, there it is on a desktop, there it is on the phone in portrait, there it is on the phone in landscape, etc. And that's it. So what I'd like you to do then is, when you go home, if you've got the book, all right, if you don't, I realize you can't, but if I get chapters 1 and 2 today, if they send them to me, I'm going to send them to all of you, even if you got the book already. Then you've got a PDF of chapters 1 and 2. All right? And otherwise, at least chapter 5, like I mentioned before, if you go out here to Muroc.com, whoops, got to spell it right, Muroc.com, all right, and you click on Shop Books, and you go to Web Development Books. Here is the book. It's in here someplace, HTML. And if you go down to here, under free downloads, again, they used to have 1 and 2 in here. They changed it to chapter 5. All right, but you could at least take a look at that one if you wanted to. All right, so do that. So tomorrow, I'm going to have you do this with me. And we're literally, I actually got a site that we're going to create together. And I don't want you to waste your time typing in a lot. For instance, hey, let's type in this paragraph with 100 words in it. That to me is stupid. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of your time. So what you're going to see tomorrow is, notice if I come in here and I want to make a paragraph, guess what? I make a tag that's called, whoops, not like that. I make what's called a P tag, paragraph. All right? Now, if I want to put 100 words in it and they're garbage because they're just filler, I can type in lorem 100. Now I got 100 words. All right? So if I save that and I go back in there and I run it again, now I've got that. Now those words don't make a lot of sense. Don't let that bother you. It's filler text. And this, I started a tag. All right, I started ending a tag. I don't know what I did there, but that's why that's there. Okay? So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to do tomorrow. Also, you may or may not have noticed this, but I personally think it's a pain in the butt that I keep having to come out to here, double click on this, and then do this. That's a pain. Guess what? You don't have to do that. But what you have to do is, in Visual Studio Code, this is what we're going to go over tomorrow. If I go over to, where is it? Is it here? No. It is right there, halfway down. See where it says extensions? If I click on that, there's an extension that I'm going to have all of you download tomorrow. It's called Live Server. And there it is. Now, notice on mine it doesn't say install. Even though I uninstalled this product, it kept my settings from my last install in there. Yours will say the word install on it. And literally all you have to do is click that word. Sometimes it'll say to you, to get this to take effect, you have to restart this. There's another button you just click. And it's like that. All right. But the reason I'm showing you this is now when I take this, if I want to run this, I'm going to put another paragraph in here. Yep, I put 2 of those in. That's the problem. So let's put in another paragraph. And I'll just make it smaller. So I'll put in lorem 50. All right. And I'm going to save. Now when I go in there and I right mouse click on my HTML file and I choose open with live server, there it is. That's all we'll have to do. So this is all the stuff we're going to look at tomorrow. If I, by any chance, and I sure as heck didn't mean to, but if by any chance any of you are thinking, oh my God, this is so freaking hard, please don't think that way. All right? I think you guys will have to tell me at the end of the semester, but I think you'll both say this was easier than the class we took last semester. In fact, you might say this is orders of magnitude easier than the class you took last semester. Yeah. And that'll help you guys because when you guys take C# next semester, you'll already know programming. These guys came in with students who had already had, JavaScript for 8 weeks and they didn't have any programming. And that's why, it may or may not have taken some time where it started to kind of jive and make sense. All right, so it is a little early. Again, if you have not gotten your badge, your parking pass, one or the other, you just go down to the end of the hall right before the steps, left. He may or may not be in there. That's our security guy. He's terrific. All right, he's a super good guy. And he will take your picture, and you might have to wait 5 minutes. Hopefully there's not a lot of people down there. Look at chapters 1 through 5 for tomorrow. All right. If you do think of anything in the interim, or you're like, hey, I was really wondering about this, just email me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. I will tonight. I shouldn't probably tell you this. You guys may have even heard it already. I'm a frustrated guy who's been trying for 20 years to learn how to play guitar. All right. And on Mondays, I've got my guitar lessons from 5 to 6. But when I get back, I'm going to get on and see if I have any email. All right, that's all I've got. So you guys go ahead and take off. Kind of be quiet though, just in case he's lecturing over there. Okay. And you may or may not know this, but I don't know if they're ever coming back. That's an actual enterprise rent-a-car center right across the hall from us. That's a working call center. They've got 50 to 100 people that work in there. But since COVID, they've been working from home. I've heard rumors they may be coming back in January. I don't know if it's true or not. All right. Yeah, it's built into Visual Studio Code.